Ladies, gentlemen, second chancers, welcome to the Bandit channel, where once again I'm making yet another video. Kelly Wentworth will not count, and so will this entire cast, because I'm continuing the tradition of taking a Survivor cast and tossing it in the trash. Today I'll be casting 20 new Survivor contestants and giving them the breath of life in this returnee season. Standard rules apply, like even gender ratios. No winners or players that played more than once before Cambodia, with season 32 and beyond players ineligible to be casted. A quick shout out to all the love I've been receiving on the channel lately. It is incredible, and if you want to join the rogues, hit that subscribe button. Without any further, let's dive into the video. Much like the original, I added one person from Borneo, and I know the fans consider Cambodia to be a bit too game body, so I immediately added some humour in Greg Buis. Now I know I usually cast Colleen, but I decided to listen to the fans on this one and pick the original Joker. Plus, nothing quite hammers home getting a second chance than the first ever jury member in Survivor. But Greg was hilarious on Borneo, and I even took the time to amass a few of my favourite Greg moments.
The nature phone is really a way that I kind of keep in touch with the greater, the greater spirit out here. All right, listen, well, yeah, just hold my calls if anybody's in this. Yeah, we're all on island time. The pilot of the plane. Can you hear me? The air is humming. And something great is coming.
All right, who did it? Who did it? Who counted that goddamn chicken before it hatched?
If you are still doubting Greg's ability to cause chaotic fun, then need I remind you he even tried to vote out Jeff Probst at their tribal. Finally, his final jury speech is iconic, and probably would have been even more memorable if not overshadowed by Sue's Snakes and Rats speech. In fact, Kelly Wigglesworth in Cambodia even references Greg's pick a number question in her jury question. So all in all, let's see Buis return. Following on from that is T-Bird, a woman who made the final list for Cambodia, but somehow not the top 20, and obviously I feel it was a travesty not to have her on the cast. Despite being older than in Africa, Teresa is still in great shape and is very invested in the game of Survivor. You all know just as much as I do, she'd enjoy every second on the island while given a second chance. Plus, Survivor has shown to have a soft spot for underdogs. The original Cambodia cast had many, and T-Bird is no exception, as she was the last standing Samburu. We then continue on to Sean Rector from Marquesas. I think it's obvious by now, I love Sean, but he's a fantastic character who shockingly hasn't even returned as of making this video. On season 4 he was hilarious, called everyone out in confessionals, and had some of the hardest hitting one-liners the franchise has ever seen.
Checkmate, bruh. Thought you had me. So anytime you go to Vegas, bet on black. But we definitely gonna have chicken and waffles when this whole thing is done.
He has many notable moments, from his feuds with John Carroll to being part of the biggest flip the game had seen at that point. Just, please actually refer to a blatant obvious alliance member as an ally next time, Sean. For my sanity. From an iconic old school player to another, let's go to the Amazon and introduce Heidi. In spite of the Amazon being nearly 20 years old at this stage, the stripping for peanut butter scene is still talked about to this day. Add on top of that her being Jeff's perpetual punching bag, her klutzy moments, and a final tribal speech that was hilariously awkward, and she has all the credentials for a return. Much like another young woman in her early seasons, it would be really interesting to see her return with a bit more life experience and game sense. I know I was talking about final tribals earlier on, and let's go to Vanuatu with my next pick in Twyla, the runner-up of the season. Despite playing in an earlier season, that didn't stop Twyla from being one of the first true female villains. She swore on everything imaginable, got into arguments, and flipped on Leanne at the final 7. Ultimately, I think it's impressive. Twyla got to the end, in spite of being one of the oldest women on her original all-female tribe. And just as impressive is how Twyla managed to keep her voice throughout the entire season after all her confrontations.
I'm not saying that you all didn't do any work. I said some do more than others.
Because you play the martyr and you take on that role. You take the martyr and you play on that role. If you were not here, we would still have fire and shelter and food.
On the topic of confrontation, I also added Ian to the cast. I know Ian probably won't return to Survivor, but this is my dream cast. As we've learned from Cambodia, the key theme is learning from your mistakes to achieve redemption, and synergizes with Ian's backstory in giving up immunity to Tom. On Palau, Ian was a very strong player, credited after the initial immunity challenge for creating Karud, the most dominant tribe in Survivor's history. Beyond that, he was strategically savvy by aligning himself with the eventual winner Tom, but was willing to cut him at the end, acknowledging his threat level, which not everyone in the second in command position realizes. We're skipping ahead a few seasons, but I got to add her, and this is in 2 words, Natalie Bolton, the Black Widow in training that joined the infamous Women's Alliance in devouring men. Love her or hate her, I think we can all agree Natalie is an incredibly entertaining person and more than worthy of being a returnee. Plus, she was so good at embracing the villain persona, and it almost came to her naturally.
And now I'm actually having a lot more fun. I'm getting to be more of myself, which is proving to be pretty ruthless and pretty stone cold. And I have a smile on my face. Sorry about that.
Then she also convinced Eric to give up his immunity necklace, which is one of the most iconic mistakes in Survivor history. Then we have her notable cringy question to Parvati at the final tribal council, the fact she blindsided 2 men back to back with idols in their pockets, and was the last fan standing. There's just too much to ignore. Gabon is regarded as one of the craziest seasons, and one of the people that contributed to that was Ace. He was a pineapple-absorbing sweet talker, and for anyone that doesn't know, I'm British, much like Ace, so screw it. If I see the opportunity to cast one of my countrymen, I'll take it. In spite of being a pre-merge boot, there were several pre-merge boots in the original Cambodia season, plus it's not like Ace was an early boot by any means. He survived 4 tribals, 3 on the train wreck which was Fong, and probably would have made it to the merge on other seasons, but was harmed by Gabon's super late merge. Ace was very well spoken and one of the most strategic players on season 17, although that's not saying much, and was unfortunately blindsided at a split tribal with Sugar, being her emotional self, flipping on him. Did someone say flip? Because I casted the underdog turned swing vote Shambo from Samoa. Although not the most game savvy, she did claim to be street smart and knew a ton about chickens.
I didn't know they could frickin' fly.
I'm not calling Shambo stupid, but it's a bird for crying out loud. I would think you being a country girl would assume that something with wings can fly.
Sorry, that was low-hanging fruit. I know, and while I acknowledge some people don't like Shambo, I found her to be an interesting presence on season 19, if only because of her klutzy demeanour. She was on the bottom, then became the new leader when Russell left, had an emotional backstory, a notable feud with Laura Moret, and flipped to the Underdogs, only to be cut by them near the end. The next player needs no introductions, but I'll do it nonetheless. I went to the man who explained things in black and white. Marty. No, not that one. This one, the former Grand Chess finalist at the age of 2 himself. But for me, Marty is the perfect mix between actual good strategy and self-destructive scatterbrain schemes. Fortunately, I didn't cast anyone named Jane on this returnee season, so Marty, my friend, you should be good. Redemption Island is regarded as one of the worst seasons in Survivor history, but in spite of its predictable winner and steel merge, I feel there are some diamonds in the rough. The first is Stephanie Valencia, a feisty underdog that fought until the very end, even though the rest of the tribe weren't having it.
I'm voting for you. You are so misguided and so rude.
She aligned herself with Russell on the first few days of the game, and by association fell victim to the Zapatera tribe, trying to vote out Russell and any trace of his lineage. Moreover, dare I say, she has one of the most strategic minds from the young female archetype Russell tries to align with. She had a lot of potential on Redemption Island, but wasn't fully realised due to her always being on the bottom, and could replicate a Kelly Wentworth type of success on the return. But there's another Redemption Island player, because fittingly, also looking for redemption, is Ashley Underwood. Like it or not, Ashley had a strong showing in Redemption Island by constantly being in the majority, establishing social bonds with the Zapateras, and it's theorised she could have genuinely beaten the infamous Boston Rob at the end. She was a brain, brawn and beauty all in one, in my opinion, and definitely can replicate her ability to make it to the end game on the return. Even though Ashley didn't make it to the end, this young man did, and that is Albert from South Pacific. This season was one of the ones that branded the early 20s as the Dark Ages due to its cult-like mentality through individuals that were mostly religious, but Albert still had his fun moments. Unlike Coach, Sophie, Brandon and his other purple friends, Albert tried desperately throughout the game to flip the dynamics, preventing such a stale pagonging for us as a viewer. Add on top of him taking Brandon's immunity necklace, then watching him get voted out, and this weirdly hilarious final tribal due to his inability to actually respond to the jury. Cue the video.
Just really quick question. Did you know I was going home?
Let me tell you right now.
Did you know I was going home?
I'm going to tell you.
Did you know I was going home? Yes or no?
This is the answer to that question.
Yes or no?
Albert's also really great at providing information-rich, yet entertaining breakdowns of strategy post-Survivor, so he's a worthy pick in my eyes. Then One World. Oh boy, that just fun season filled with racism, sexism, a boring pagonging, and everyone's favourite two-time returnee, Colton. I wasn't exactly spoilt for choice when it came to this season, but I still picked two cast members. First is Troyzan. Again, much like Marmite, some love him, some really dislike him, but he was the only form of resistance against Kim's otherwise domination of the season, and you've got to respect his underdog immunity train run. Now, Troyzan has returned for Game Changers and played more passively than in One World, but it could be argued due to him being one of the few people you could actually justify as a Game Changer, on top of all the actual Game Changers being eliminated early. For playing hard, he had to hang back. On this cast, with, in my opinion, a more even playing field, it allows Troyzan to strive. Talking about striving, an individual who was a tough rival for Kim at the endgame came in the form of Sabrina, who finished second place on season 24. She found idols, worked alongside Kim to form one of the most powerful female alliances, and actually got 2 votes in the end, despite Kim playing one of the most dominant game Survivor has ever seen. So she had good jury management. Plus, I found her really funny, especially when Courtney injured herself and everyone was feeling bad for her. Sabrina was instead slagging her off.
This is gonna sound mean, but hopefully she's getting x-rayed and just really getting used to the air conditioning there and getting a fresh drink of water and saying, I like this, and don't come back.
Considering how she had to go head to head against one of the best winners in Survivor history and Kim, 2 eventual finalists, and still managed to make it to silver, means she can do well on the return. We'll skip a little bit forward to Blood vs Water, an odd season considering how few people were eligible to return. But someone I picked was Hayden, the Big Brother winner. Now, apparently, as far as I've been informed, Hayden wasn't allowed to play in Cambodia due to being a Big Brother winner, which was weird considering he's returning for a Survivor season, not CBS. Nevertheless, I casted him anyway. We all know Hayden can win CBS strategy games, and came surprisingly close to another W in Blood vs Water, despite his big target. But Hayden was obviously great, and absolutely deserving of the return. He respected the game of Survivor, played hard, and even caused the first official rock draw of the new format. Beyond that, I tried to cast as many Cagayan people as I could, but only ended up on 2. What can I say? Cambodia had some great returnees. The final pre-merger I selected was Jatia, and while yes, she is one of the worst players physically, and probably socially due to throwing out all her tribe's rice.
That's why they had people guarding you. I was like the mental patient, and then you left the mental patient alone and I went crazy.
I still loved every second she was on my screen, with her survivability, rivalries, or chaotic attitude. Will she do well in the return? Probably not, but Abby Maria showed having a person not super strategic with low winner equity can result in fun on the return, so I may as well. From someone with low potential to someone with great potential is LJ. He is a man with a triple threat demeanour and lovable nature that would have been a tough beat against anyone in the end. LJ was a force on his season, always in the majority alongside the ability to find idols, and was only beaten in a 5-3-1 blindside by the infamous eventual two-time winner Tony Vlachos. A lot of people have theorised he could win on the return, and I feel he's got the winning potential. And if nothing prior convinced you he can teach people about chicken's anatomy. Who else on Survivor can say that? For San Juan del Sur, I previously casted Jacqueline, such as in my beauty video, but I've decided to switch it up and pick John. While Jacqueline made it further, John did have his own standout moments. Of course, there's the idol play at the Keith Neal tribal.
And then all of a sudden it's bam. Idols are everywhere. Idols are everywhere. I say stick to the plan.
I'd rather play this than go home with it in my pocket.
John does not count.
But he also was the driving force against Josh and Jeremy, ensuring a comfortable swing position for rounds to come. Plus, I also really liked his backstory, playing for his ill father, and creates a strong returnee story where he wins for his dad. Finally, I added a person from One World, as in spite of being the season just before Cambodia, it did receive representation in the original timeline. While I obviously couldn't pick Joe, I picked fellow Red caller Jen. She's not as memorable nowadays, but just after Worlds Apart she was a player really adored. Innately she's easy to love, as on her season she was in direct opposition to controversial figures like Dan, Rodney and Will. But on top of that, she also had a strong idol play at the merge, which sniped out Mike's biggest ally in the game, Kelly. I do find Jen great, and her confessionals bashing on Vince were just incredible. But that's the cast, all made, and here it is in its entirety. A reminder to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, as we begin the climb to 400 subscribers. Peace!